Welcome to the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
Here's the snap, here's the hold, here's the boot by Luke, and that kick is no good! No good! It's wide right! No he missed it! Luke missed it! And your Pittsburgh Steelers are AFC North champions!
That's Rob King with the call, and what a night it was at Acrisure Stadium as the Steelers eliminate Baltimore, and it went right down to the very kick. Welcome to our Ford Steelers Playoff Preview. Bob Pompeani here. We have two of the best in the business to analyze this one. We have Don't Cross the Moats, Arthur Moats here, and out west we have Hoke Bros 76, Chris Hoke. And Chris, I want to start with you because normally we're in the studio. We weren't doing that this week. Where were you, and what was your thought about not only the Ravens getting into field goal territory, but the kick?
Yeah, well, I couldn't believe after that last touchdown, the Ravens were going to be able to march down the field and have that opportunity to kick the field goal. But, Pop, usually I'm down there with you, right? We're on KDKA. I'm watching it in the conference room. I'm cool, calm, and collected. But this time, I was at home with my boys, and I was able to watch this game. They were going crazy. They were jumping up and down. So guess what? They had me jumping up and down. I could not believe that Luke missed that field goal. I thought as surety that he was going to make it, and he was going to send the Steelers into the offseason, and who knows what would have happened after that.
And he was 29 for 29 in that same distance, Arthur, so I think most people thought it was over at that point. Your thoughts? Where were you?
Yeah, so for me, man, I was also with my son, but I was in the stadium watching this kick, and everybody in the section was losing their mind because we all felt the same way. Man, it's over with. But to see that miss, literally all of us losing our minds, and it was a collective, just joyful evening, and it made the night that much better because, you know, it was a late night with this being in prime time, but no better feeling than watching that thing officially go missed. It's
amazing, you know, when you talk about it and just the emotions of that moment at that time. And it led to the Steelers winning a division. So they're AFC North champions and now go into the postseason with a home game as a result. Here are the final standings. Steelers 10-7. The Ravens, who fired John Harbaugh right after this at 8-9. The Bengals and then the Browns will be high in the draft. So let's talk about it, Hokie, the ups and downs of this kind of a season. There have been lots of ups, lots of downs. If I had one word to describe this team, it would be resilient. What about you?
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say this is a very resilient team, right? There were two times in this season where we really wrote the Steelers off. We left them for dead. They kept coming back. And I remember Coach Tomlin being asked in a press conference, Pomp, when they asked him, they said, what gives you confidence this team's going to be able to win, going to be able to come back? He said, just watch. He had confidence. All that matters is what those guys believed in that meeting room, in that locker room, and they continue to fight, and they've won the last month, and here they go into the playoffs. Really a hot team, right? They're on a winning streak.
Yeah, they are. They've actually won 4 of 5. We talk a lot about the Texans at winning 9 in a row, but they've won 4 of 5, and that's a good thing. Let's talk about the division titles over the years because the Steelers are the king of the North, and they did it again this year. However you get there, you got to get there, and they've won 10 of those. Ravens second, then the Bengals and the Browns since 2002 have 0 AFC North titles. So, Arthur, what is the key? When you see this team, they put a lot of different people in play this year. What was the key to them emerging as champs?
Yeah, I think for me, the Steelers stick with their method. Physical, beating you in the trenches, also winning the turnover battle. You watch this team, when they were able to protect the football on offense and ultimately create turnovers on defense, they won the majority of those games, and that has been a staple under Coach Tomlin, and that's a big reason why you see those 10 division championships up there, and a big reason why they were able to get back on top of the North this season.
Yeah, and they did it with a defense that made plays when it certainly had to, and an offense that was led by a 42-year-old quarterback right now who turned back the dial a little bit, went back to his maybe MVP playing days. Aaron Rodgers with 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the season, 3,300 yards, and a pretty good completion percentage. Let's talk about this matchup because the Houston Texans come here as a team that's won 9 in a row, but it's interesting to note there have been 7 teams that have won 9 in a row heading into the playoffs. Only one won a playoff game after that. So Houston has a lot of work to do, especially on the road. The Steelers 10-7. We have a lot to get into on this Ford Steelers playoff preview. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers offense under Arthur Smith. And DK Metcalf is back. We'll get into that and more as we continue right here on KDKA.
Welcome back to the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
All right, welcome back. We continue here with a Houston-Pittsburgh matchup. The Houston Texans started the season 0-3. Not many people thought they'd be here where they are right now, but when you win 9 in a row, that happens. The Steelers, as I said, have won 4 of 5, and they're led by a 42-year-old quarterback who is actually drinking from the fountain of youth, it appears these days. Rich Walsh had a chance to talk to Aaron Rodgers before this big game.
Aaron Rodgers is hoping to get this team back on track in the postseason, and he's one of the main reasons they have a good chance to snap that streak. Outside of that Cleveland game, the Steelers have played well down the stretch, and Rodgers had a few clutch moments, and this time of the year is the reason he signed with the Steelers.
I care about winning. That's why I'm here. That's why I love the Monday to Saturday grind. And, you know, stats are what they are. The trends are what they are, and those trends are – any trend is always meant to be broken at some point, so hopefully we can do that. It feels good to be back. That's why you play. You want to be playing meaningful football late in the season, and we put ourselves in that position. You know, I think some of it's embracing the way the season has gone, and at 6-6, there are a lot of people thinking we were going to be kind of stumbling to the finish, and then who knows what was going to happen. A lot of you probably in this group, either publicly or privately, we're talking about Mike Teague next. So it feels good to shut all those comments down. Clean the slate now. Anybody can make a run.
And Monday night will be Rodgers' 22nd postseason game. He's 11-10 all time, including 4-2 in the wild card games. And Rodgers and the Steelers are home underdogs for the second consecutive week, something that doesn't happen too often. Guys?
That's right, Rich. A home underdog, but I think the Steelers like that role. Talk about veteran presence, and this is a guy who's been there, done that. 21 postseason starts. You see the numbers, 58-94 passing yards, how about 45 postseason touchdowns, and some of these numbers are active among NFL quarterbacks. So he is still one of the best in the business. And Arthur, let's talk about having an experienced quarterback, because this is a guy who's given them a credibility factor, and more than that, a belief that they can get it done. I think those younger players around him believe it too.
No, you're absolutely right. They all rally around him because he's a guy that has proven that he can take you all the way to the top and win it. Regardless if you're talking about him being a 4-time MVP. When we look at him and say Super Bowl champion, that's the belief. And we know in the postseason, quarterback play matters that much more because turnovers are amplified. Your possessions are amplified. So when you see those specific statistics for Aaron Rodgers in the postseason, if you're a Steelers fan, you have to feel very optimistic because we haven't walked into a stadium with this type of production at quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger was here.
That's absolutely right. But a big part of this also, Chris, has to do with their offensive line. When you think about it, they have a second-year guy at center. They have a second-year guy at right guard. They got Dylan Cook, who nobody even thought would get a chance. And they're all coming together at the right time. How important against this Houston team will this offensive line have to be?
Well, it's huge. Listen, the reality is they need to play lights out. You have Will Anderson Jr. on one side. You have Danielle Hunter on the other side. These guys have 27 sacks between the two. They get after the quarterback. They run stunts. They're very active. So they've got to be well put together, communicate now. And I've loved how this offensive line, Bob, has come along throughout the season. There were a question mark coming into the season. Now I believe it's one of the strengths of this Pittsburgh Steelers team.
Yeah, no question about it. Those young guys have stepped up, and they had to do it, but this will be one of their more significant tests of the season. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers' defense, which has made some plays at critical times. Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, and those inside linebackers. As long as that defensive line does what it does, I have a good feeling about this game. We'll talk more about that as we continue right here on the Ford Playoff Preview.
Welcome back to the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
All right, without further ado, we're talking about the Steeler defense because a lot of people are going to focus on Houston's defense, and rightfully so. They're number one, very elite in just about every category. However, the Steelers have come up with big plays at big times, led by their outside linebackers. Let's get a roundtable discussion about the Steeler defense. We head over to Steelers.com. In the studio there with Rob King, Missy Matthews, and Matt Williamson.
All right, Bob, thanks very much. Bob used to, of course, the studio, and it's taken two of us to replace him, Matt Williamson and myself, along with Missy Matthews, who is normally here with Pomp. And we're talking about the Steelers' defense going against the Texans' offense. So, Missy, I think your key is going to be to try to limit C.J. Stroud. They're a team that throws the ball more and better than they run the ball.
Yeah, and I like a healthy TJ Watt, who said his legs felt great after that Baltimore game. No one usually feels great after a Baltimore-Pittsburgh matchup, but Alex Highsmith has just really turned it on, especially with TJ missing those 3 games, and then Nick Herbig in 13 snaps did a lot of damage in those snaps against the Ravens. So hopefully that's something that can continue on Monday night against C.J. Stroud and make him very uncomfortable and maybe force some bad decisions.
That would be great because C.J. Stroud does not get sacked very much and he hasn't really been even pressured that often. There's going to be times where he has time, and when he has time, look, Dalton Schultz, excellent tight end, and we know the Steelers have not been tremendous against tight ends this year. It's gotten better as the season has progressed, but Nico Collins is a legitimate top-end receiver.
Oh, yeah. I think he's a premier player at that position. Height, weight, speed. He's definitely the straw that stirs the drink for their passing game. They're going to feature him short, deep, after the catch. He's a handful, and I would assume, especially because the other Steeler corners are pretty solid and they can trust those guys, I would think Porter follows Nico a high percentage of the time, who does most of his work on the outside, too.
And I love the way the Steelers defense is playing, and I love the way the interior of their line is playing.
Yeah.
The Texans don't run the ball a lot, or they run the ball a lot. They don't run the ball great all the time, but they will stick with it to try to control the clock. Love to see the Steelers' interior, that defensive line, come to bear on the interior of the Texans' offensive line. I think it's a big advantage of the Steelers. If they can shut down that running game and make them one-dimensional, maybe you get to Stroud a little bit more, and maybe that leads to a Steelers victory. That's the way we see it here. Bob, let's head back to you in the KDKA studios.
All right, Kinger, thanks very much. Good breakdown there. And let's bring Chris Hoke in on this because that's where he made his bread and butter on the defensive line. You got to admire Cam Hayward, every year. And this is in his mid-30s that he gets better like a fine wine. He was rated #1 by Pro Football Focus among defensive linemen. That's saying something, Chris.
There's absolutely saying something. Listen, Cam Hayward, remember back in training camp when people were talking about he wasn't worth the extra $1 million, but now you're seeing why. Not only is he a leader, not only is he a guy who stood before the team the night before the game and motivated everybody, got after everyone to stretch and reach. The next night when they were playing in the game, he comes out and he leads the charge. He's an inspiring leader, but he plays with perfect technique. He's a guy who plays with unlimited energy, and he went out there and he had tackles for loss, batted balls that led to interceptions. He was a leader on that defense with 7 tackles. I love what Cam Hayward's doing for this defense.
No question about it, but it's complemented by an outside linebacking game that's been very good, and not just 2 guys. Houston has 2. Steelers, I think, have 3 when you put in Nick Herbig there. Talk about those guys, the impact they should have in this game.
Yeah, those 3 guys right there really stir the drink on defense for us. We love the pass rush, and utilizing all 3 of them on the field at the same time creates one-on-one matchups. The sack that we saw Nick Herbig get last week versus Baltimore was a prime example. They have him playing as if he's an inside linebacker, but it's by design, so when he rushes the passer, it's versus a running back, and he absolutely makes it light work and gets the sack right there. Those 3 guys, the way that they're playing, their production really has boosted this defense, and the secondary has also been a benefactor of it as well.
We saw Nick Herbig in the middle. They moving him around. A lot of people thought T.J. Watt would do that earlier, but he's been the guy. How effective is he coming up the middle?
Yeah, to me, man, I think Herbig is the perfect player to be that middle guy that can run. And you see him drop into coverage also, but his athletic profile presents a little bit more for that. Whereas with TJ, we know, man, we love TJ when he's going forward, dropping those beautiful pass rush moves that has had him be one of the most productive players that we have seen in the NFL rushing the passer.
No question about it. All things are looking up at this point. It's going to be Monday Night Madness when the Texans come to town. When we come back, we're going to break down this matchup specifically, some of the keys to it, and what the Steelers have to do to advance in the AFC Super Wildcard Weekend. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
Well, every fan left Acrisure Stadium happy when the Steelers beat the Ravens last week, but nobody was more elated than Olivia Young, who is the big winner of the Ford Toughest Truck, Toughest Team contest at halftime. How about Young? She won this custom F-150 and will now be driving that around in her hometown of Morgantown, West Virginia. She will be doing it in style. Congratulations to the Youngs down there. Let's talk a little bit about this game. And Monday Night Football has been a great place for the Steelers to play, so this schedule certainly had to be pleasing to them. Take a look at Mike Tomlin when we're talking about Monday nights. At home, 12-0. Overall, 23-3, and overall means some road games. But keep in mind, 2023, that game against Buffalo started at 4:30, so technically it wasn't really a Monday night game. But that's an impressive record. Arthur, let's talk about that. What is it about Monday nights and just playing in night games in general at home?
Yeah, so for me, I always think of with Coach Tomlin. He does such a great job of motivating. He does such a great job of letting you understand what the moment is and what it means. And when you have that type of motivator, when you have that type of guy that understands the preparation on the front end, it just comes to a head in these games. And it's never, the same storyline, right? We've seen the Steelers win big on Monday night. We've seen them win close right down to the end nail biters on Monday night. But the constant belief and the constant just mindset that we are going to come out of this thing with a victory, and we're the only team that is being watched right now. Coach, to me, does a great job of just presenting that and getting you ready to go for it.
No question about it. One thing they have to guard against, though, are slow starts. And if you look back at all these recent playoff games, they have dug themselves a hole. These are the halftime scores of the last 4 of these games: 21-zip, 21-7, 21-7, and 35-10. Chris, you can't afford to do that, especially against a team like the Houston Texans, because they will, when they pin you down, it's hard to dig out. So how important is this first quarter, first half of the game?
Well, it's huge, right? You've got to start fast. I've always said the most important drive is the first drive of the first quarter and the first drive of the third quarter. They've got to come out on fire and move the ball down the field or get a stop. But for me, Bob, in those last 3 losses, really the reality was those teams, right, they were better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so sometimes slow starts is just the team's just better, right? There's other times where you look back a while back, years past, where they played the Jacksonville Jaguars and lost and fell behind, where the Steelers were overlooking them and are looking to the New England Patriots in the next round when they were the higher seed. So really the reality is there could be a number of things that can cause a slow start. It could be just maybe over being hyped, maybe making some mistakes, a bad snap because you're overexcited for that game. You can't always pinpoint. It's like Coach Thomas says, a little bit of popcorn. It can be one thing or another, but there has been a lot of slow starts, and they've got to guard away from that on Monday night.
Here's another thing why they need to start fast, because the Houston Texans are number 1 in the NFL fourth quarter point differential. They are plus 78. So when you get down on them, you're not going to come back against them. Let's talk about just the home playoff records here, home and away, because this is a problem for the Texans. Now, the Steelers, you can see 9-15 on the road, but they've been very good at home. But you look at the Texans, 6-2 at home, 0-6 on the road. Every time they go outdoors, they seem to have problems. So, Arthur, how big of an advantage for them coming here on a Monday night when it's going to be, I hope, whatever the weather department says, we hope it goes 10 degrees less.
Absolutely. Listen, we want a lot of snow, a lot of wind, a lot of cold. But that is one of the challenges of being a inside warm climate team. Houston plays in a dome, so when you do play outside, you do have different elements to account for. When we're talking about the postseason on top of that, we know this is also where the stakes are the highest. You don't have the opportunity to fix it next week because there isn't a next week if you're not perfect. So all of those things, when you factor in, along with Houston, typically being the younger teams in some of these matchups, you just have a lot to overcome versus the Steelers, where you have a veteran coach. You have a team that traditionally has had a lot of players that have had postseason success. So it's just a different mindset when you're approaching these games.
All right, there are some big games this weekend, Super Wild Card weekend. No Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, no Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about it when we come back here on the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
Welcome back to the Ford Steelers Playoff Preview.
It's Super Wildcard Weekend, AFC Playoffs. Broncos, of course, get a first-round bye. And then you're going to have on KDKA, 1 o'clock, you got the Bills and Jags. That's on Sunday. Sunday night will feature the 7-seed Chargers against number 2 New England, and, of course, the Steelers game on Monday night. So, Chris Hoke, let me ask you this. The Steelers still could get a home game, depending on how this breaks out. But if they should advance, what's the best matchup for you in the next round?
Well, obviously, the best chance would be for them to have a home game, right? If the LA Chargers win, the Buffalo Bills go in and beat the Jaguars, and you can see the Steelers having a home game. And so I think that's the best scenario. But if you talk about what's likely to happen, I think for me, the best chance is for the Steelers to go and play the New England Patriots. They have familiarity there. They played them earlier in the season. They understand that offense, a young quarterback who's playing under pressure. So I think all those lends to an upset if the Steelers have to go on the road and play a higher seed team.
All right, Arthur?
Yeah, for me, I'd look at Jacksonville just because of the style. They love to pass the football. They struggle to run the ball. One of the things that I think we do really well is rush the passer. So to me, I think that will be an opportunity for us to really shine. And I like our offense versus their defense as well.
I think it's a big opportunity for Josh Allen. He may not have the team around him, but there are no obstacles in terms of quarterbacks who he had to deal with over the. So this could be an open door for Josh Allen. And if it isn't, man, we're going to see some topsy-turvy coming up. It's going to be a wild card weekend, no doubt. Steelers on Monday night. We have our next programming coming up on Sunday morning, 11:30. It's the Steelers kickoff. We'll get you set for that game as well. And then coming up on Saturday night, it's the Mike Tomlin Show, 1135 KDKA. Our thanks to Chris Hoke. Our thanks to Don't Cross the Moats, Arthur Moats. And thank you guys all for joining us. We appreciate it. It's going to be a great weekend in Pittsburgh. Enjoy it right here on KDKA TV.